He pushed a mop through Terminal C at 4 in the morning, headphones in, invisible to the thousands of travelers rushing past. Just another janitor in a gray uniform, cleaning up after people who never looked him in the eye. But when gunshots echoed through the concourse and everyone ran screaming, he was the only one who didn't flinch, because Marcus Cole had heard gunfire before, in places where running meant dying. And 15 years of Delta Force training doesn't just disappear because you're holding a mop instead of a rifle. Welcome to Secrets Never Told. Before we begin this story of hidden warriors and impossible choices, tell us in the comments where you're watching from today. And if you believe some heroes never stop serving, even when the uniform comes off, hit that subscribe button and help us honor those who protect from the shadows. Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport processed over 100 million passengers a year. The night shift cleaning crew worked from 2200 to 0600, invisible labor keeping chaos at bay. Marcus Cole had been part of that crew for 3 years. At 42, he was built like someone who maintained peak physical condition. Broad shoulders and defined arms his gray uniform couldn't hide. Military short dark hair, strong jaw, sharp brown eyes in a handsome but exhausted face. He moved with efficient precision, pushing his cart, mopping floors, headphones always in, playing nothing, just a buffer. Other janitors had stopped trying after months. He showed up, worked flawlessly, left. Management loved him. Coworkers thought him stuck up or broken. Marcus Cole was tired, bone deep tired. He had spent 15 years in Delta Force, operating in countries that didn't officially exist. Iraq, Syria, Afghanistan, Yemen, kicking down doors, extracting targets, making split-second life-or-death decisions. He had been one of the best. Cool under pressure, tactical genius, physical abilities off the charts. Commendations he couldn't talk about. Missions that never existed. Then Somalia. Extraction gone wrong. 3 men died. Marcus carried 2 wounded operators 5 miles through hostile territory, taking rounds that should have killed him. He got them out. Received a medal he'd never wear and medical retirement he never wanted. Physical wounds healed, the others didn't. PTSD, survivor's guilt. Marcus couldn't sleep, couldn't handle crowds, couldn't close his eyes without seeing dead faces. So he became a janitor. Simple work, no life or death decisions. Just mop, clean, repeat. Terrible pay, looked down upon, but quiet. It demanded nothing except showing up. That Thursday morning started like any other. Clock in at 2200, load cart, headphones in, begin route. Terminal C, Concourse D, food court, bathrooms. The airport stayed busy even late. Flights arriving, red-eyes departing. Around 3:30, mopping near gate C-14, a group of drunk businessmen walked past. One bumped Marcus's cart, spilling coffee across the clean floor. "Jesus, watch where you're going," the man glared at Marcus. Marcus said nothing, began mopping the spill. "You speak English?" another asked with condescension. "You, mate." Marcus looked up, expression neutral. "I understand. I'll take care of it." "Damn right you will," the first said. "That's what they pay you for, right? Cleaning up after real people?" They left laughing. Marcus returned to work, face showing nothing. He'd heard worse. This was the price of invisibility. He finished the concourse and moved toward the main terminal, pushing his cart past the security checkpoint, nodding at the TSA agents who barely acknowledged him. His route took him past the central atrium, a massive open space where travelers waited for flights, worked on laptops, or slept awkwardly in uncomfortable chairs. That's when he heard it. A sound he hadn't heard in 3 years but would recognize instantly for the rest of his life. Gunfire, automatic weapons, 3-round bursts. The atrium exploded into chaos, screaming, people running in every direction, trampling each other, dropping bags, pure primal panic. Marcus's body reacted before his conscious mind caught up. Muscle memory from 15 years of combat dropping him into a low crouch behind his cleaning cart, his eyes scanning for threats, his brain processing information at a speed that felt like slow motion. 2 shooters, one at the north entrance, one at the south. AR-style rifles. Tactical movement, but amateur execution. They were firing into the ceiling, trying to create panic more than casualties. Not terrorists, Marcus's mind cataloged. Wrong tactics. This was something else. A woman fell 3 feet from him, not shot, but knocked down in the stampede, screaming as people ran over her. Without thinking, Marcus moved, grabbing her arm and pulling her behind the relative cover of a concrete pillar. "Stay here," he said, his voice carrying a tone of absolute command that made her stop screaming and just nod. More gunfire. The North shooter was advancing, firing controlled bursts. Marcus's eyes tracked him, noting the stance, the weapon handling, the way he moved. Former military, probably National Guard level training, but rusty. The South shooter was worse, spraying bullets wildly, his fear obvious even from a distance. Travelers were bottlenecked at the exits, crushing each other in their desperation to escape. 2 TSA agents had drawn their service weapons but were frozen, unable to get a clear shot with so many civilians in the way. Airport police would be here in minutes, but minutes in an active shooter situation meant body counts. Marcus's hands tightened on his mop handle. Every instinct, every hour of training, every fiber of his being was screaming at him to move, to act, to do what he had spent 15 years learning to do. But he wasn't Delta anymore. He was a janitor, a civilian, a man trying desperately to be normal, to not be the person who made those decisions anymore. A child's scream cut through the chaos. Marcus's head snapped toward the sound. A little girl, maybe 6 years old, separated from her parents in the panic, standing frozen in the middle of the atrium while people ran around her. The North shooter was advancing in her direction, not targeting her but not avoiding her either. Marcus Cole made a decision. He moved, not running, not panicking, but moving with the kind of controlled precision that came from 1,000 combat deployments. He angled across the atrium, using pillars and cover, keeping low, his body automatically falling into tactical positioning he hadn't used in 3 years. He reached the girl in seconds, scooping her up without breaking stride and continuing toward the southwest exit where the crush of people was thinnest. "Where's your mommy?" he asked calmly, his voice steady despite the chaos. "I don't know," the girl sobbed. "It's okay. I'm going to find her. But right now you need to be very quiet and very brave. Can you do that?" She nodded against his shoulder. Marcus moved through the chaos like he was navigating enemy territory, which, in a sense, he was. His eyes tracked both shooters constantly, calculating firing angles, predicting movement patterns, identifying choke points. He guided a cluster of frozen travelers toward an emergency exit they hadn't seen, using his body to shield them from the shooter's line of sight. "Move," he commanded, his voice cutting through their panic. "That door. Now!" They moved, something in his tone bypassing their fear and triggering obedience. Marcus stayed at the rear, positioning himself between them and the threat, every movement deliberate. The North shooter saw him, swung his rifle toward Marcus. Time seemed to slow. Marcus's body dropped into a tactical crouch behind a concrete planter, the girl protected in his arms. The burst of gunfire hit the planter, concrete chips exploding, but Marcus was already moving again, rolling toward better cover, his brain calculating trajectories and cover positions without conscious thought. A TSA agent nearby saw Marcus's movement, saw how he moved, and something clicked in her eyes. "You're military," she shouted over the chaos. "Was," Marcus replied, not looking at her, his attention fixed on the shooters. "I need your help," she said, and there was desperation in her voice. "I can't get a clear shot and backup is 3 minutes out." 3 minutes was forever in a situation like this. Marcus looked at the little girl in his arms, then at the hundreds of travelers still trapped, still panicking, still in danger. He thought about Somalia, about the men who didn't make it out, about all the reasons he had walked away from this life. Then he looked at the TSA agent, saw in her eyes the same thing he had seen in young soldiers facing their first firefight. Terror masked by training, determination masked by uncertainty. "Listen carefully," Marcus said, his voice steady and clear. "North shooter is your primary threat. He's got better training, better discipline. South shooter is scared, firing wild, but he's pinned down most of the crowd. You're going to reposition to that pillar." He pointed. 20 seconds after I move, you're going to have 3 seconds of clear sight line to the North shooter. Center mass, double tap. Don't hesitate." "What are you going to do?" she asked. "Create an opening, and when I say move, you move. No hesitation. Lives depend on it." He handed the little girl to another traveler crouched nearby. "Keep her down. Don't move until police give the all clear." Then Marcus did something he had promised himself he would never do again. He became an operator. He moved from cover with the kind of speed and precision that looked choreographed, but was actually the result of endless training and real combat experience. He didn't run toward the shooters. He flowed, using the geometry of the space, exploiting blind spots, moving at angles that made him a difficult target. The South shooter saw him first, swung his weapon toward Marcus, but Marcus was already dropping, sliding behind a row of seats, coming up on the other side. The shooter fired, bullets stitching across the floor where Marcus had been a second earlier. The wild shooting had exactly the effect Marcus had calculated. It forced the North shooter to turn, to check on his partner, breaking his firing discipline for just a moment. That moment was all the TSA agent needed. 2 shots, clean, center mass. The North shooter dropped. The South shooter panicked, really panicked now, spraying bullets everywhere. People People screamed. Marcus saw airport police entering from the east concourse, too far away. The shooter would kill someone first. Marcus moved again, not toward the shooter, but toward a service cart near the shooter's position. He kicked it hard, sending it rolling directly at the shooter. The clatter made the shooter spin, fire at the cart, waste precious seconds. By the time he turned back, 3 officers had clear shots, 2 rounds each. The shooter dropped. It was over. The silence that followed was almost worse than the chaos. Ringing ears, the smell of gunpowder, people crying, the wail of approaching sirens. Marcus stood slowly from his cover position, his janitor's uniform dirty and torn, breathing steady despite what had just happened. Airport police swarmed the scene. Paramedics rushed in. The girl Marcus had saved was reunited with her mother, both crying. People were being triaged, questioned, processed. And in all of it, Marcus tried to slip away, back to his cart, back to being invisible. But the TSA agent found him. "Wait," she called out. "Sir, we need your statement. What you did, how you moved, that saved lives." "I didn't do anything," Marcus said quietly. "Just tried to stay alive like everyone else." "That's not what I saw," she replied. "I saw someone who knew exactly what he was doing. Someone with training, real training." Before Marcus could respond, an older man in a suit approached. Mid-50s, graying hair, moving with the kind of authority that said federal agent even before he pulled out his credentials. "FBI Special Agent Raymond Walsh," he said, studying Marcus with sharp eyes. "I need to review the security footage of this incident. You're going to be in that footage doing things that don't match your employee badge." He pulled out a tablet, turned it toward Marcus. The security footage played. Marcus saw himself moving through the terminal, every movement pure tactical precision. Room clearing pattern, threat assessment positioning, cover utilization that only came from real combat. "So let's skip the part where you play humble janitor," Walsh continued. "Talk about who you really are." Marcus looked at him for a long moment, then at the terminal around him, at the people being treated, at the little girl crying in her mother's arms. "Marcus Cole," he said quietly. "Sergeant Major, 1st Special Forces Operational Detachment Delta, retired." Agent Walsh's expression shifted slightly, recognition and something like respect flickering across his features. "Delta, that explains the movement, the tactical positioning, the way you created firing lanes without even thinking about it." He paused. "Why is a Delta operator working as a janitor?" "Because I was done," Marcus replied simply. "Done with the missions, the deployments, the decision. I wanted simple, wanted quiet." "How'd that work out for you?" Marcus looked at the chaos of the terminal, at the aftermath of violence he had helped stop. "I'm still figuring that out." Over the next 3 hours, Marcus was interviewed by FBI, ATF, airport security, and multiple agencies. They reviewed security footage showing his tactical movement, use of cover, civilian evacuation while creating firing opportunities. The shooters were 2 brothers with mental illness and obsession with mass casualty events. Marcus's intervention disrupted their plans, turned chaos into controlled evacuation. 0 civilian casualties, 2 security personnel with minor stampede injuries, everyone alive. A miracle in active shooter terms. As dawn broke over Atlanta, Marcus sat in an airport security office, still in his torn janitor's uniform, drinking bad coffee and trying to figure out what came next. Agent Walsh sat across from him, reviewing reports on a laptop. "The media is going to eat this up," Walsh said, without looking away from his screen. "Hero janitor stops mass shooting. They're going to want interviews. Your story. The whole thing." "No," Marcus said flatly. "You don't get to decide that. This footage is already being reviewed by oversight committees. Your name is going to come out. Then I'll disappear." Again, Walsh finally looked up. "Why? You saved lives today. Did exactly what you were trained to do. Why are you running from that?" Marcus was quiet for a long moment. "You ever have to choose who lives and who dies, Agent Walsh? Ever have to make that call in less time than it takes to breathe?" "Can't say I have. I did it for 15 years. Got good at it. Really good. So good they kept sending me back, kept putting me in situations where I had to make those calls. And every time I told myself it was necessary. It was the mission. It was protecting people who couldn't protect themselves." He paused, staring at his hands. "Then Somalia happened. 3 men died because I made the wrong call. Doesn't matter that I saved 2 others. Doesn't matter that intelligence was bad. I made the call. They died. I lived. That's combat," Walsh said quietly. "That's the job." "Yeah, and I was done doing that job. Done making those calls. I wanted to be someone who pushed a mop and went home and didn't have to decide who lives and dies." He looked up at Walsh. "But today, I did it again. Made those same tactical decisions. Used those same skills. And it worked. And I'm glad it worked. But I'm also exactly where I was trying not to be." Walsh was quiet for a moment. moment, then closed his laptop. I spent 20 years in the bureau. Hostage rescue team before I moved to investigations. I've seen operators like you before. Delta, DevGru, Special Operations Group. You know what separates the ones who find peace from the ones who don't? Marcus didn't answer. The ones who find peace accept that they can't unlearn what they know, can't turn off what they are. They just figure out how to use it in a way they can live with. Walsh pulled out a business card, set it on the table. I work with a private security company now, on the side. Training, consulting, sometimes operational work for high-risk clients. It's not Delta, it's not military, but it's purposeful. It's using what you know to protect people without the weight of government missions. I'm not interested, Marcus said. Didn't say you had to be, but that card will be there when you're ready to stop running from who you are. Walsh left. Marcus sat alone as the sun rose higher. He thought about the little girl, about the TSA agent, about people who made it home because he'd been there. He pulled out Walsh's card, studied it. Maybe Walsh was right. Maybe the trick wasn't running from who he was. Maybe it was choosing when and how to be that person. 3 days later, Marcus returned to work. The airport offered commendations, promotions, media appearances. He declined everything, just wanted his mop and anonymity. But anonymity was gone. Leaked footage went viral. Millions of views. The janitor who moved like a special operator. Comments analyzing his tactical movements, speculating about his background. Coworkers looked at him differently. Travelers recognized him, tried to thank him. He declined, kept working, tried to disappear. 2 weeks later, Agent Walsh showed up at the airport again, finding Marcus during his shift. The TSA agent you helped that night, Walsh said without preamble. Her name is Angela Roberts. She wants to thank you properly. Her daughter was at gate C-14 that night. If you hadn't created that opening, she might have had to watch her daughter die. Marcus said nothing, just kept pushing his mop. The mother of the little girl you carried out, Walsh continued. She started a petition to get you recognized officially. 500,000 signatures in 2 weeks. The governor wants to give you a civilian medal of honor. I don't want it, Marcus replied. I know, but here's what you need to understand, Cole. You can keep pushing that mop, keep pretending you're just a janitor, keep running from who you are, but everyone else knows now. The question isn't whether you're Delta. The question is what you're going to do about being Delta in a world that knows what you are. Marcus stopped mopping, looked at Walsh directly. What do you want from me? I want you to stop wasting what you are. The world needs people like you, not to kick down doors in Syria, not to make impossible calls in impossible situations, but to be ready when civilians need someone who can act, who can lead, who can save lives because they know things most people don't. I'm not a hero, Marcus said quietly. No, Walsh agreed. You're a janitor with a mop who happens to be the most qualified person in this building to handle a crisis. And maybe that's exactly what heroism looks like in real life. Not charging toward danger because you want glory, but being ready to act when action is needed, whether you want to or not. Walsh walked away, leaving Marcus with the question hanging in the air. That night, Marcus went home, poured water, sat in darkness, thought about 15 years in Delta, Somalia, the terminal, choices that led here. Around midnight, he called Martinez, one of the operators he'd saved. Cole? Martinez sounded surprised. It's been 3 years, saw the video. I can't turn it off, Martinez. Thought I could stay away, be quiet. But the shooting started and I was right back there. And you saved people. That's not bad, Cole. If I can't stop being an operator, what was the point of leaving? Martinez paused. Remember Somalia? When I said we should stop, we were slowing you down? Marcus remembered. I said we all get out or none of us do. Yeah, you weren't just talking about that mission, about how we carry each other. The skills we have aren't just for us. They're for people who need us. I'm tired of being needed like that. Maybe the trick isn't to stop being who you are. Maybe it's being who you are on your own terms. They talked another hour. When Marcus hung up, he felt something loosen. The next morning, Marcus called Agent Walsh. I'm not joining your security company, Marcus said. Okay, Walsh replied, unsurprised. But I want to talk about training, teaching TSA, airport security, local police, active shooter response, tactical thinking, crisis management, not operations. Training. Walsh was quiet for a moment. That's actually better. People like you teaching people like them how to handle situations like that terminal. That's multiplying force, Cole. Delta thinking. One condition, Marcus added. I keep my day job. Keep pushing the mop. Stay anonymous as much as possible. The training happens on my terms, my schedule, my way. Deal. 6 months later, Marcus was still a janitor. Still wore gray. Pushed the mop. Kept to himself. But twice weekly, he taught tactical response training to Atlanta security personnel. No uniforms, no publicity, just knowledge transfer that could save lives. Media attention faded. He became invisible again, but different now. Not fixed, not healed, but accepting. He carried Somalia's weight, always would, but learned something that terminal day. Being an operator wasn't about uniform or missions or recognition. It was being ready when readiness mattered. He could do that as a janitor. janitor, training others, being who he was without letting it consume him. One afternoon, a year after the shooting, Marcus was mopping near gate C14 when he noticed a woman watching him. She approached slowly, a young girl holding her hand. "Mr. Cole?" the woman asked hesitantly. Marcus recognized them immediately, the mother and daughter from that night. "I know you don't like attention," the woman continued quickly, "but Emma wanted to give you something. She's been working on it for weeks." The little girl, much taller now, held out a drawing, crayon on construction paper, a figure in a gray uniform holding a mop with angel wings drawn behind him. In careful, crooked letters at the top, "Thank you for saving me." Marcus took the drawing, his hands steadier than they'd been in years. He crouched down to Emma's level, looking directly into her eyes. "You were very brave that day," he told her. "You did everything right. You should be proud of yourself." "My mom says you're a hero," Emma replied, her voice small but certain. Marcus smiled slightly, maybe the first genuine smile in years. "I'm a janitor who used to have a different job. But thank you for the drawing. I'm going to keep it somewhere special." They left. Marcus carefully folded the drawing and put it in his pocket. That night, he hung it on the refrigerator in his apartment, the only decoration in the entire space. It stayed there, a reminder, not of heroism or glory or recognition, but of something simpler and more profound. Of a little girl who got to grow up because someone was ready when it mattered. Of lives saved not through grand gestures, but through the application of hard-earned skills in a moment of need. Marcus Cole pushed his mop, taught his classes, and learned to live with being exactly who he was. Not running anymore, not hiding, just existing in the space between who he had been and who he was becoming, one day at a time. And for the first time in 3 years, that was enough. Have you ever met someone whose quiet strength changed everything? Share their story in the comments. Sometimes the most powerful people are those who choose simple work over recognition, who serve without uniforms, who save lives and then go back to pushing a mop. Subscribe to Secrets Never Told for more stories of hidden heroes and unspoken courage.